Hi everyone, I am João, and today I'm going to talk to you about remote teams. And not only how the perception of remote work is being embraced by companies and how that is changing perception, but how the remote working culture can also have an impact on companies that are not adopting remote at all, but that use some of the methodologies. So a short introduction about me. I work currently as an engineering manager at SUSE. I am a remote manager of a fully remote team. And SUSE, for who doesn't know it, is a company that has 25 years of history, and it was the first provider of Linux enterprise distribution. And above everything, it's a company with an open source DNA. And we have many products nowadays aside the Linux, and we keep this culture, and we want it to be like that forever. My team is a quite big team at the moment. We have more than 25 developers. Half of the team is remote. We have 2 managers. I am the manager that handles the remote side of the team, and we have a local manager in the office in Germany. And we use 2 methodologies, actually. It's not a single one, because our team is divided in squads, which is inevitable with such a large team. And each squad has a certain degree of independence when it comes to choosing which methods they want to work with. So there is this obviously some standards there, but there is also some independence, and in the end it matters what gets delivered. Remote work itself is a growing trend. As we can see here, this is a very recent graph of how remote work is being searched on Google in terms of jobs and education, so there is definitely a growing trend. And for companies, this is actually a great thing because you can scale without having to buy a larger office. You can hire people on virtually any country in your time zone. You can also do it on different time zones, but it's a bit harder. And obviously, this is recommended for companies that want to grow and don't have the means to recruit or to have necessary office space. And Stack Overflow is inclusively recommending it. For who is on the other side, the home office is always a good opportunity to have control over your schedule. So it's usually bound with more free schedules. And there is this custom work environment that you can design. So if you have a room in your home, you can prepare that room as your custom work environment and have it your own way, which is a bit harder on an office. And inevitably, you'll have more focus because you don't get interrupted every other hour with some request from a colleague. Those requests do happen, but they happen asynchronously on Slack, on IRC, on whatever platform you use to communicate. So it's easier to manage them. Other benefits of working remotely, obviously you can spend more time with family, exercise more, avoid office politics, which is sometimes nice on some companies. And obviously this comes with some challenges. It's not always easy, and it requires some adaptation. Mainly for the workers themselves, there is this missing connection. We are not designed to be alone all the time, so it's always hard to get used to a different way of communicating, which is usually asynchronous. People are not face-to-face. This also can affect your sense of belonging to a company, of belonging to something. So it's one of the first challenges you need to overcome. And then it may not fit your processes. There are situations where you need real-time interaction, and this is a clear example, that just won't work with remote people. So this, hopefully on the software industry, is quite applicable, but it's not that easy for other areas of work. And there is also this concept. It's actually quite tempting to believe that some of the greatest ideas will only come when people are together in a room. It's partially true, it helps, but there are other ways to promote interaction. So it's one of the challenges to overcome here also. Part of the solution, and I mean part of the solution because there are no silver bullets. There are a few things that can help, but will only increase your chances, will not necessarily make things perfect. There are a few first principles that I like to follow. Flexible working hours, obviously, because there has to be an incentive for the remote work, and this is definitely one of them. I would also like to highlight the asynchronous communication. You don't get interrupted that many times if you use it properly. And one very important motto is, what is not written does not exist, because you can't have conversations in the office that are not shared with remote people, because otherwise you'll have half the team knowing what is going on and the other half kind of trying to guess. Hiring is where everything starts. You need to be a bit more careful in selection, not in the sense of programming talent, because that one has to be there all the time, but to look for people that, beside having that talent, are also able to focus outside an office setup, that are good at writing, because most of the communication will happen in the written form, and obviously have a good sense of discipline, because you won't have people controlling what you are doing in the same way as you have in most office setups. Onboarding is also a challenge. It's recommended that you prepare everything beforehand. I would say this applies to all the situations, not only for remote workers, but for remote workers, since there is no one in the office to talk with, it's even more important. Obviously, communication, there is no face-to-face, so all details matter. We miss some cues that only happen on face-to-face communication while being remote. So there is this set of, I would say, golden rules. When one person on the team is remote, then everyone should be remote in a way. So we should use communication methods that make everyone feel like a remote, even though half of the people can be in the office. And this means that face-to-face discussions, if they happen, they should then be documented. And there is also this idea of core office hours, which, since we have a bit more freedom when it comes to time management, it's important to have a time slice during the day where we know that everyone is available, so that we can have voice interactions, video calls, whatever is needed. Meet regularly is also quite important. Face-to-face meetings, off-sites, hack weeks, and when people are on the same city, why not share a common work environment where at least some people can be together? Tools. Beside the obvious ones, I would like to highlight the RFC model, which is something we use quite a lot at SUSE, which is mainly a document template that helps collaboration between people that are not necessarily together with a whiteboard in front of them. I unfortunately don't have much time to go through it, but I can have a chat with you if you are interested later in knowing a bit more about it. Rituals. Well, although we are working from home or from a co-working space, but when from home we can have a bit less discipline. We can work in underwear if we want, but that's something I would not recommend. You should have a work routine, like if you are going to the office. Have some regular working hours, because it's a bit harder to distinguish what is work versus what is personal life, so that one needs to be on check. And also a dedicated work area, a room, whatever place you would like to prepare for your work. A few tips as a manager. Finding the right balance is quite important. This first one about the manager's schedule versus maker's schedule, it's something I use a lot. I try to group my interactions all in the morning and then have some time available on the afternoon to read, to do some coding, to do some technical investigation without interruptions. That's quite important to keep everything on check. Also, although a healthy team is your top priority, obviously you need to reserve some time for technical insight and know what your product is about, what code your team is writing, get involved in things, review pull requests, but also write some code. Creating empathy, it's definitely important in all situations, but it's even more important for remote people because there is not this personal interaction I mentioned. So you have to be always available, set the tone for a good communication, which means people should know that you are available, that you care about what is happening, that you want to interact, and that it's not a problem to interrupt you to ask something important. And obviously other things like embracing small talk are also quite important to create confidence between people. One-on-ones are part of the recipe here. So I would say that at least 30 minutes every other week, ideally more than that is the minimum. You have to choose the right schedule to avoid being disruptive for other people and also for yourself, because you also need to keep some moments where you need to focus. And you should do some preparation, not just, hey, we are here, let's meet, what do you want to talk about? You should note the important matters, write notes, and understand what is happening at the moment and what your team needs help with eventually. And to finalize, it's about embracing being behind the screen. You don't have the commuting time or stress, which is a very important trade-off here. You have less interruptions. You can work from anywhere in theory, and you can design your work environment. And that's all I have today. Thank you.